What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode here of the BlockHash Podcast, your number one resource for all that's happening across the emerging tech space. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe wherever you listen to or watch the show. Today, I'm joined by another wonderful guest, Stefan. He is the co-founder and CCO of WunderGraph. Stefan, welcome to the show, man. It's a pleasure to have you on today. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Thanks so much for having me here.
Pleasure's all mine, man. Excited to have a conversation with you today and to learn more about WunderGraph. Before we do, would love to learn a bit more about yourself. If you don't mind telling us a bit about your background, your story, and maybe what kind of led you into this space in particular, and also what kind of emerged before WunderGraph.
Thanks so much for the introduction. My name is Stefan. I'm the co-founder and chief customer officer over at WunderGraph. A little bit about my background is that prior to WunderGraph, I was a software engineer. And in the back of my mind, I always wanted to start a startup. I started my career in 2019 after I tore my ACL. I was a collegiate soccer player. I signed up for professional club USL, and I thought I would play professional soccer. And then second training session, once I signed, I tore my ACL. And so I was like, oh, crap. What do I do? I moved back in with my parents. I was recovering and, healing up from that injury. And I got a job in cybersecurity. I had a computer science and economics background, and I started working there. And I met the co-founder, two co-founders that have started 5 companies. And I asked them, how do you just start companies? They're like, you just do it. And I was like, wow, it's that simple? They're like, no, it's the hardest thing you'll ever do, but you can just do that. We've started 5. I was a lawyer. He was an electrical engineer. And now we're doing cybersecurity. And I was like, dang, that's crazy. And so I kept thinking about it, and I progressed through my career for 2 years. I was a software engineer at a startup, and then another startup, and then a pretty big company like corporate. And I couldn't get building a company out of my head. And so I met my co-founder online on YC Find a Co-founder, basically like Tinder, but for finding co-founders. And we matched. He had a technical idea. I brought the sales and marketing. And this was 3 years ago. And then, we raised 3 million, and then we grew. We almost died. We pivoted, and then we exploded. And then we just signed our 7.5 million Series A led by eBay and Karma Ventures. And so that's a quick rundown version of me and how I got into this space. I do have a technical background. I was working with APIs, but I always wanted to start a company somewhere in the enterprise software space. And that's kind of how I got involved with it.
Wow, true startup founder story right there. I didn't even know that there was a Tinder for finding co-founders. You learn something new every day.
Yeah, it's not as good as it used to be. When it first came out in 2019 or in 2021, it was really good. I found my co-founder on there. I think I might be one of the only success cases from YC Find a Co-founder. But yeah, now it's kind of oversaturated and everybody wants to be on there.
Yeah, I can imagine. Interesting. So tell me about WunderGraph. What are you guys cooking up there in terms of your guys' mission? I know that you guys are focused on tackling APIs at scale and some of the problems there with managing them. What is your guys' main focus with that? And what is your, overall direction?
Yeah, it's a great question. So what WunderGraph is today is we are an open source GraphQL Federation platform. What that means in non-tech talk is if you think of API management, it just means software or tooling to manage APIs. At very large enterprise scales, they have thousands of different APIs, whether these are external or internal, lots of different teams using them, and you need tools to manage all those APIs. There's different types of protocols also with APIs. And really what you can think of APIs is just plumbing. How can we connect all our services together in a digital world? How can we connect to other services from other companies? And we use APIs to do that. And so right now, if we look at the API management space, we are a niche inside of that space where we focus primarily on GraphQL Federation, which is one specific protocol of GraphQL, and then Federation is within that space. And so right now, we are the open source Federation platform, a niche within a niche. We do pretty good there because companies run Federation at scale. So a lot of companies like eBay or Paramount or SoundCloud is that they run this protocol at scale and they need a tool to help manage and to be able to use it. And so that's what we provide. But our mission isn't to stay within that niche. What we really want to build upon is building the end-to-end service to help companies build digital products from end to end, focusing on APIs. And so from interface design to API implementation to being that platform to sketch APIs, collaborate together on them, because every single company in the world uses APIs, and we want to provide the platform for them to collaboratively build, scale, deploy, and just work with APIs.
Gotcha. And you do this through the GraphQL Federation, correct? That's your main solution.
For now. So GraphQL Federation is a great like entry point to the API management space. We're really great here. We have some great customers, but the overall problem is that companies will always have APIs, especially with AI, but no one's been solving the point of how do we collaborate with each other to build better APIs. We have the tooling that makes it okay, but nobody's actually building a software to collaborate with APIs. Eventually, we'll expand out of all protocols, but for now, we are in the GraphQL Federation space.
And then what can you highlight in terms of maybe some use cases? I'm sure people would love to hear some examples. I know that you guys are utilized by some pretty big giants like eBay and SoundCloud. Any use cases in particular that maybe come to mind?
There's a lot. Like typically, what a REST API is this is like the old protocol. It means like a REST for transfer protocol. And what you do is you request data from an API, and the REST service will give it back to you all that information. If you think about this at scale, if you're requesting from Facebook some information and you get back every single piece of information, that's going to be extremely slow and it's going to be really, really problematic. What GraphQL solved or is solving is it allows you to ask exactly what you want from the API and get that information back. And so that's great. It's a great use case, but it does come with some caveats. And then what Federation does is you can think of it as each team is able to take apart their API and break it up into tiny little parts. And now each team can just focus on their little part, but it contributes to the overall schema or API. And so one of the first use cases that it solves is it allows teams to move faster. How can we break apart this API into smaller sections? And we can only contribute to that smaller section and we can only worry about that smaller section. So it's a fantastic piece for improving developer velocity. The second one is at scale, for example, like eBay, you can think of they're doing billions of requests per day. They can't just have a service that's sending in all information. But what they allow with Federation is to break it apart and to able to scale out that across a bunch of different services. And so again, that's also a fantastic use case that they have there. But there's a lot of use cases for Federation. But typically the ones that we see is how can we improve developer velocity, developer collaboration, and then how can we have a microservice architecture at scale?
Got it. And then what do your customers usually look like? Are these large companies and enterprises? Are these small businesses in certain situations? Does it kind of vary from time to time, or do you have a very specific like client avatar?
It's a great question. Like our ICP, who we try to sell to or that we influence are VPs on platform teams. Platform teams are typically companies that are B2C. So you can think of Paramount, SoundCloud, eBay. They sell to the everyday consumer. And because they do so, they have crazy scale. You know, so many people are going on eBay. So many people are streaming music off SoundCloud. So many people are streaming on Paramount. And so our customers are those engineers at B2C companies, typically over 1,000 employees. So we're definitely in the enterprise space. We have some customers that are more around like 100 or 200 employees, but typically we're selling to upper mid-market or enterprise in the B2C space.
Okay. And what market is this available in? Like, do you work with companies globally in the US, any particular region, or how does that break down?
We're all over. So we have customers in Japan, we have customers in Australia, Europe, North America, primarily North America because of just like the adoption. It's a little bit harder across Europe, but we have a lot of customers in Europe. But it's anywhere. And then across industries, it really depends. We have B2C, we have retail, we have travel, we have energy and gas. So one of the oldest gas companies in the United States, they federate how they display oil metrics across their entire fleet of reserves that they have. And so it really depends on the industry. One cool thing about APIs is every single company in the world that has a website or has some sort of digital presence, which you could think of as everybody, uses APIs. And so it really doesn't matter what industry we're in.
Yeah, that's another interesting question. Like, so it's not just like your typical SaaS company that maybe is looking to utilize this. It could be like a gas company, maybe in their supply chain or corporate side of things, or what industries have you seen a lot of interest from or a lot of demand for this kind of a solution?
Yeah, great question. It really depends. So retail, anything that's customer facing. So you can think of like Abercrombie and Fitch, you can think of Rolex, retail companies that are customer facing. Because when you think about it, what they are is you're looking inside of a store, but digitally. And you have to fetch information from a wide variety of data sources. And how do you do that with APIs? And it's the same thing with oil and gas. Like you have to talk to a lot of different plants at a different time. So you're going to use APIs. But any company that will use APIs could be a great great fit for Federation. It just depends on the technical team. But it's quite an interesting use case because we have retail, we have interesting websites, but anybody that needs access to lots of data could use our platform.
I know you guys have seen a lot of fantastic growth early on too. 1.5 million downloads, 10x growth in managed service users so far. How do you guys continue to grow and expand from here? How do you want to scale WunderGraph, and what direction do you see it eventually going?
We currently right now, I think last year, at the end of 2024, we were about 10 people. Today, we're about 27. And I think we'll probably end the year at 30 or 35. What we're hiring mostly on is the engineering side. So to keep up with the demand, as you said, like 1.5 million downloads over the year and then 10x growth, especially in the managed service, we've hired more engineers. We've hired more support engineers. We've brought in a customer success manager. So we're really doubling down on our current customer base. Second part is we've also hired on the marketing and sales side. We want to continue that growth, maybe even triple it. And so we're hiring on the marketing side, we're hiring on the sales side as well. We brought in our first 2 sales hires, and we really want to go with that growth. One of the important things about us is my co-founders are also German, and then I'm in America. And what's great is we have that wide range of European talent and American talent. So you can kind of get a good balance between the two and supporting customers from both bases. And so for us is really hiring strategically. How can we hire people that will really move the needle? And how can we make sure that with the capital that we secured, the 7.5 million, how can we properly allocate that to grow further?
Awesome. So speaking of things like hiring, growth, what's the story kind of been like for you in regards to startup scaling, especially with WunderGraph? Like, what lessons have you learned in that process? What did you do right? What did you do wrong? I'm sure there's a lot of other founders that will watch this and be very curious to some of the trials and tribulations that you also went through.
Yeah, again, like this is a tough question because there's a good quote from Mike Tyson that says, like, everybody has a plan until you get punched in the face. And so you can have this amazing plan of how I'm going to hire, how I'm going to fire, like all this type of stuff. And then you build a startup and you realize that all goes out the window. The biggest one that I've learned is somebody told me in my beginning days is hire slow and fire fast. And it's like, oh, that's such like trivial, like, advice. Like, of course, but you're going to make that mistake and you're going to have to go through it and then you're going to be like, holy crap, I totally understand. So really hire slow, like until you are flaming and you need like some help to like extinguish this fire. Really slow down on the hiring part. Like your first 10 hires set the entire state of the company. So you need to make sure that your first 10 are amazing. The second one is you're not OpenAI, you're not Google, you're not Meta. You need a way to attract top talent, whether that's paying on the upper end of the spectrum of like scale or on a cost or like salary if you got funding, or it's convincing people based on your mission. So you have to be able to be clearly articulate what the mission is and be able to convince people to join you, a 10-person startup that could not be here next year. And then the third one is one of the things that I've been learning as I've been like a first-time manager. So I went from being an individual contributor now to being like a manager and growing that out. And like now I have a team that completely reports to me with some VPs. The biggest thing that I try to tell myself is every 3 months, how can I fire myself? Like if I left, what would fall apart? And then I go and I make sure that those things are properly allocated to the right people. And then the fourth one is this is just like common knowledge, but a lot of founders miss it, is criticize in private, but praise in public. It's this small little thing that makes all the difference. If you see someone not doing something right, tell them in private. When you see someone doing something right, though, tell everybody in public. And it really helps bring the culture up. And then the last one is culture. Culture is who you hire, who you fire, and who you promote. That's for me what culture is. Like you can write down a list of core values, but if you don't actually demonstrate those core values, people will see that. And so how you want your company to behave, you should behave like that. Be honest. Is there work-life balance? Are the founders working on weekends? Do you expect people to work on weekends? Be really transparent, be really honest. And that's how you set the culture of the company. And so all those were some of the key learnings that I had when we were growing out and scaling. But again, a lot of survivorship bias. Every founder is going to run through their own tribulations, and it's really important that they actually go through those because you learn a lot from them.
Yeah, that's really good advice. I know a lot of people that are founders and they're running their own startups or companies, and they run into these same issues. Like they want to hire people immediately and they want to get things done and delegate and totally get it, but they end up usually hiring the wrong people because they don't go through the process slowly and methodically to find the right people that are a good fit for their company and their culture and what they're doing. And then they get to a position where they're uncomfortable because they can't fire people. Like they're really good at everything else except for one thing. And they can't put a mean face on or let someone go. And then they just have this bad kind of toxic environment that the founder sets because he or she isn't able to kind of mediate that kind of a situation and grow culture properly. It's definitely very true. So I'm glad you brought that up. And then, yeah, you don't want to like destroy the morale of like the people that are working with you too. Like obviously you got something to talk about, do that privately in a public space, also make them feel rewarded. It's a little give and take there. But that's all really good stuff. For WunderGraph, what's on your guys' roadmap here then in 2025? We talked about a few things earlier on, but in terms of maybe things you're going to roll out, further announcements this year, what can people look forward to? What initiatives do you have coming that you can kind of tease?
Yeah, great question there. It's one of the most exciting ones. There's a lot that we're working on. One of the biggest things is collaboration. And it's something that's like near and dear to our hearts because it's what happens when we talk with a lot of customers. Just for context, like we have some companies with engineering departments of like 2,000 people and they'll use our product. And so you get really good access to people using your product at scale. And one of the biggest issues that we've seen is not a technology problem, but a people problem that can be solved by technology, which is Conway's Law. If you ever heard of Conway's Law, is that your architecture will reference the structure of your company. So what that means is in an architectural for technology, like imagine a startup. A startup has a single code repository. Everybody commits to the single code repository. And what it does is it actually mimics what the architecture of that company is, which is a small startup, everybody in the same room. But if you think of a company like eBay, they have engineering teams all across. So they don't all just contribute to one place. It's all broken up. And what Conway's Law is very rightfully points out is that your architecture on software will actually mimic your internal one that you actually have for the company. And what we realized by talking to our customers is, hey, there's this problem where a bunch of people want to build something. They have to bring in a product manager. They have to bring in a designer. They have to get some feedback. They have to put it in linear. They have to hop on a Zoom. They have to write in Slack. And you have all this information that's going in different places, but it's not all in one place. And then what that does is it slows down development. Hey, did you see the change I made on Figma? No, I didn't. Oh, okay. Why didn't you see it? Let's hop on a Zoom. And before you know it, a feature that was only supposed to take 2 weeks being scoped out takes 2 months. And one of the things we're working on here is that APIs are a really strong foundation to solving this problem because APIs essentially are plumbing. And if you connect the right plumbing to relay the information correctly, there's a lot that you can do. And especially with the introduction of like LLMs, is that how can we feed the LLMs the correct context of our company? Not me typing it out and saying, hey, this is what I want to build, but hey, here's what we built before. Here's what the team needs. Here's the context that you need. Help me draft out a UI. Okay, help me connect these different APIs. And so what we're building is what we call WunderGraph Hub. It's a collaboration platform for building APIs at scale. You can think of it as Figma for APIs, so allow you to bring in designers, product managers, everybody that would be working on that product with you. It allows you to mock APIs for your front-end developers. It allows back-end developers to collaborate together. It has real-time notifications like multiplayer, so people can be like, hey, I saw you made a change. Why'd you make a change? No need to hop on a Zoom call. We can just collaborate here on the platform, like that multiplayer facet. And so we've already rolled it out privately. We already have like our private beta. So far, the customers love it, which is fantastic. It is currently focused on GraphQL Federation, but we're slowly expanding use cases out and creating bridges for multiple people. But that's really what we're doing is we're heads down on that part. And then the second part is continuing to sell our core product, which is WunderGraph Cosmo, that open source GraphQL Federation platform.
Excellent. Any events or conferences, engagements, talks that maybe you're going to be attending the rest of this year?
Yeah, so we have 3 events, one in Austin, one in San Francisco, and one in New York. Austin will be towards the end of September. San Francisco will be during San Francisco Tech Week, so you're looking at like October 13th. So September, October, and then New York will be in November. And these are 3 private dinners, about 35 people each, sponsored by WunderGraph. And the theme is beyond GraphQL. So we're bringing in architects, we're bringing in platform engineers, people that are interested in collaborating on APIs at scale. So 3 private dinners hosted by us at top steakhouses. We take you out, we bring speakers from our customers, we bring people that are over there, and we more or less wine or dine you, but without an agenda. Like, come enjoy a steak on us, enjoy some great dinner, some great wine. Talk to people that are running into problems that you're running into at work, but in just a collaborative environment, and hear a little bit about our new products. So we have those 3. And then we also have a big launch coming at the end of the year. So that's important there. But most of our physical events, like conference talks and everything, will be September 2026. So we definitely want to hit KubeCon. We want to hit all these big conferences.
I bet this steak is really good in Austin.
That's the one I'm most excited about there. They're in New York, so I can't wait.
Awesome, man. No, that's fantastic. Definitely enjoy. Where can people go to learn more about WunderGraph? How can they get in contact if they would like to implement it into their company, their startup, or enterprise? They have a need for your guys' API solution. Where can they get in touch? Do you guys have socials? Do you have community? Is that something you guys also focus on? Where would you send people?
I'm active on LinkedIn and Twitter. So you can follow me on Twitter at StefanTMD, or just LinkedIn by looking up my name. Also, my email is stefan@wundergraph.com. I'm very responsive. I'll answer there. For WunderGraph, we do have a Twitter. We do have a LinkedIn company profile page. We're very active on both. We're also active on our website. So you can come in, just leave some information if you do want something on the sales side that we can help you guys out with. And then we also do have a Discord community. We have a Discord community around like 2,000 people. They're all in there asking questions about Cosmo and things like that. That's also public as well and found on our website. So we're very active on social media, and we're getting even more active now.
Awesome, man. Stefan, appreciate you taking the time today. It's been a great conversation. Love what you guys are working on. Keep me updated on everything as more comes out with you guys with WunderGraph. Would love to have you back on here in the near future when you have some more use cases, more examples you want to talk about, as well as any new solutions or products that may also roll out. So keep me updated, and we'll talk again soon, man. It's been great.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me. It was a blast.
Likewise. Take care.